Bit today about variables. Now, the written lecture and your textbook go into technical details, so you can learn certainly a lot more about them there. I just want to show you in practice of why they're useful to use and where you can start implementing them in your code. So we're going to build something today and show the value of those. We're also going to go over a few other little um, code ideas of using some other functions that maybe you haven't started using yet in your experiments, just so you can see those in practice as well. So essentially what I'm going to make, it's very simple, but I'm going to build three simple circles and I'm going to draw them to the screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my size function going, and I'm going to create a window that's going to be 640, 480, sort of a common screen resolution. Now the other thing I'm going to put here is I'm going to use the function called smooth. I don't know if it would be better if I zoom in a little bit here for you. Maybe you can see this a little bit better. And here this is essentially anti-aliasing. So it's going to kind of smooth out corners, especially with curves, Bezier curves, ellipses, things like that. It's going to make it look a little bit better on the screen. Now this function doesn't have any parameters, but we still put the parentheses. So we leave it like that. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the stroke. So I'm going to say no stroke. So capitalization is important here. You see that everything is lowercase for functions. When we talk maybe a little bit later about class and objects, we're going to start using capital letters to declare those. Don't worry about that now. And then again, this is this sort of staircasing. This no stroke has a small letter to start and then has a capitalization for the second word in it. It's called camelback notation. It's just sort of a convention in computer programming. So again, the no stroke doesn't take any parameters. It's just sort of an empty thing, but we still use our parentheses and our semicolon to end that. Okay, so I'm smoothing it. I don't want any stroke. And let's see, I'm going to build an ellipse. And I'm going to put it to the screen. We're going to start it. We're going to kind of divide the screen up here. I'll go 160, 120. So this is the position, the center of the ellipse, where it's going to be on the screen. And I'm going to give these a width of 50. And so there's my first one. I'll build a second. And this one I'm going to move over. I'll move this one to the 320. I'm going to keep it at the same Y height across. Again, giving it the same diameter. There we go. And here will be the third. And this one will be at 480, just sort of evenly spaced. Again, at the same Y dimensions and same diameter. So now when I hit play and this compiles, I should have three circles built to the screen. And there it is. Beautiful. Lovely. Okay. All right. So a few things I want to change in that. I'm going to hit the X here to stop that. Is I'm going to add a function here that's going to change the background color. I'm going to go background, and I'm going to make our background white. So I'm going to go 255. And so there we are. So we're going to have a white background now. Now, some of the things that I notice is that the diameter is kind of small. I'd like to make them a little bit bigger. So I would have to go through there and let's say change these. But you can see now that I've built this, having these repeating numbers. And so it gets a little tedious to kind of always have to update these. So this is where variables become helpful for you. So let's do this. Let's create a variable to control the diameter of our circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create these are whole numbers. I don't need decimal points, so I'm going to use an integer. So it's going to be the type integer. We're going to call it circle diameter. And now there's two ways I can do this. I can declare it just like that and say, hey, there's going to be this variable. and then I can assign it a value. I can come down here and now give it a number. So the equal sign, it's not a comparison, it's actually going to give this value, and we're going to say, let's make it 100. It's going to give this value to this variable now that it's in memory. So anytime that this is called, it's going to use this 100. So now I can kind of just go through, and I'm just going to kind of copy and paste this in. Much easier. Paste. Than having to write that a bunch of time. And anytime I want to change this or update this, I just have to update it in one spot, and it makes life easier. So, okay, it doesn't like this, missing semicolon. It is right there at the end of that assignment. Let's try this again. Okay, so now we have a problem. We have a white background and we have white circles, so those aren't showing up at all. Okay, so we need some fill color. So let's do this. Let's make these, I turned off the stroke too, so that's a problem. Let's make these 255, I'm gonna make them red. And let's see these again. That was a good mistake to make. Okay, 3 red circles, beautiful on a white background. They're ready to go, okay? So the other thing that I can do as far as declaring and assigning variables is that I can do it all in one. So I can just take this, instead of doing it a few times here with these 2 different steps, I can just do this. And so this assigns it and, or declares the circle diameter as a, wow, I'm glad I didn't, I misspelled these, but I'm just going to leave that as because it works. And so there it is. It's giving me these 3 circles. Now the other thing I'm noticing too is that I can make some more variables here too. Why not, right? So let's fade out the fill color. Okay, so I'm going to create another variable. It's going to be another integer, and we're going to call this transparency. And we're going to give this a value of, we're going to give this a value of 100 as well. Now I'm just thinking that I could probably just use the circle diameter again, but to keep things understandable and not to freak myself out later if I was to look back at this code and try to figure out what's going on. And so I'm using names, that makes sense. So this is going to be the transparency. So this is the other thing that you probably haven't seen when you're using color. So in copy and paste this. Anytime you use a color, so fill, stroke, you can add a 4th parameter to these functions, and that is your alpha. So the 3 channels are the RGB, and then we have a 4th channel for transparency, essentially, for an alpha. So I'm going to give that a value of 100. So how this works is that the higher the number, again, it goes up to 255. It's a full byte of memory. 255 is completely opaque, and 0 is completely transparent. So I'm giving it a sort of a lighter value to it. And I'm going to stop this. And let's see, so it should be kind of, as it blends with the white background, it should be sort of a pink color. There we go, a little softer color. Now I want to kind of fade this out, so I'm going to, since we're sequential here, I have to add, that'll be for the first circle, this will be my second circle, and this will be my third circle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this value. So I'm going to actually do some arithmetic assignments to it. You can add, subtract, multiply, divide. And so with the transparency, I'm going to subtract it. So I'm going to subtract 50 from the first one, and I'm going to subtract 75 here from the second one. And now when I do this, yep, so there it is. It's fading out. So I got a nice little gradation here. Now the other thing I'm noticing is that I have a y value that's staying consistent through here, and my x value is updating by a consistent number. So maybe I can do something with that too. So let's add a few more variables. So we're going to do our x position, and we're going to start it at 160. And we're also going to make a Y position, and we're just going to make that 120. Very easy. Don't need that. Looks like that's right. So let's copy the Y position. And anytime I see this 120, we're going to replace that. And we're going to get an X position as well. And there it is. There it is. And there it is. Now essentially what I'm doing is that I'm also, now what I can do is plus basically itself. So I'm going to do this, plus equal, I don't know if that'll let me do it. X. This is going to get kind of weird. Perhaps not the best way, but we're going to add it again. Or actually, let's do, yeah. Go crazy with this one. We'll show you the multiplication. So we'll do multiplied by 2, and then we're going to, we'll even do some, okay, so pay attention to this one. This one's crazy. So this is order of operation. I'm going to multiply it by itself, or multiply it by 2, doubling it, which will give me to the 320, and then we're going to add another one of itself to it. So it'll do the things in this parentheses first, the right here where I'm clicking, multiply by 2, and then add itself. So this should get us up to the 480. Let's see if any of this stuff happens or makes sense. It should look like we did it before, and there it is. Okay, so it's working. Great. So essentially what I did is the Y position stayed the same, so I just left that and I've added that as a variable. And then I've had to do some crazy math here to get this to the work. I guess I could have also done this where I multiplied just to keep it maybe consistent. That feels a little bit better. So doubling it and then doubling it plus adding another one of itself to it. So it's 160 times 2, which was the 320, and then the 320 is this times 2, adding another 160 is the 480. So that gets me across the screen that way. All right, so you can see in just by putting everything into variables here, I'm able to add these to the functions. These functions accept variables in for parameters. It also accepts these sort of mathematical sort of assignment operations that happen. So functions are pretty powerful in the parameters that they accept, which is kind of cool. And I've also kind of streamlined this, so if I wanted to make changes, if I wanted to update it, I can just do it in one space just by updating the value of the variable instead of having to repeat myself 100 times depending on how many functions I have. Now eventually we're going to get to the point where we're going to have some structures that are called loops, and we're going to be able to make some decisions within these loops, but we're going to kind of automate this process where I don't even have to put the ellipse here a bunch of times. I can just put it once within a loop structure and have the computer or the program repeat itself as many times as I want. All right, hopefully this helps. Let me know if you have any questions.